So the thing about this, I think, is that brands are weirdly, stupidly, unnecessarily getting political. And I don't know if this is exactly the right place to talk about it, but it's around trying to promote this emotional value. And I just think it's really dangerous. I think it's really unnecessary and risky because, you want to sell to the whole world. I did a stand-up comedy course, and one of the things that they told me was you don't do jokes about politics or gender because what happens immediately is you split the room. And if you get the split right, as long as you are, literally, this is what I was told, as long as you aren't upsetting the females, then it will be all right. You upset the females, nobody's allowed to laugh. Will Smith, there it is. Exactly that. Will Smith supposedly upset his wife and he wasn't allowed to laugh and then he had to assault somebody. It's exactly like that. Why are these brands doing it? I don't understand. I mean, I do understand it's because they're trying to leverage this emotional value.
Well, maybe, but also this to me also links into service value. So I'll give you an example, I think, of a business that does authentically as well. Again, that springs to mind. That would be Atlassian. Okay, so Atlassian, the founders there, like Cannon Brooks, they're massively getting behind the whole theme of climate change, to the point where they make it very clear, we're going to pay all our staff. I'm just picking up what I read from reading the features guide. We're going to pay all our staff a full day's work, 2 days work, and they can go to these climate change events and march in favor. Plus they're funding, and they're being very vocal about it. Now, so when you say, hey, do they need to be? I think there's a balance here, because it's also important, and I would do it. It's important and okay if you have a firm belief to make a stand for something that you believe is important, it's aligned with your brand and you're willing to back it, go for it. But just make sure, I guess this is where some of those businesses have fallen short, is that they are not living those values and they're not structurally sound with those values. If I come back to Latia's model, which is why they might get lashback. But if you're living and breathing and espousing those values that you're selling and you're structurally sound with them, even if you do polarize some people, we can't please everybody. Not every customer on the planet is your customer. And so it's okay, provided you know that. And provided you're okay, you're making a stand and selling what you believe is morally sound, authentic, best thing to do moving forward. I think that's okay. And that's where we see, does that make sense? That's where you see some businesses might get lashback. Others, hey, I'm sure, I don't read it closely, but I'm sure Atlassian might get pushback from some people because of how they do support that theme and topic when a lot of people still don't.
Okay, I don't think it's okay. I think it's dangerous because where we find ourselves in 2022 is there is a very, very noisy anti-climate change component to our society. There is a much less noisy anti-climate change component to our society. And these two ends of the spectrum are making a huge amount of noise.
Yeah.
The issue is that the majority of people, the silent majority, are all in the middle somewhere, having whatever their opinion is, but we don't ever get to know necessarily what that opinion is. So the danger is that if there are more people on the anti-climate side than the whatever way it goes, for addressing climate change, against addressing climate change, you don't go. So pandering to those noisy bunches on each end of the spectrum, I think is quite dangerous. And I think it would just be better if brands didn't get involved in issues. I think here's what I think would be better is if brands just really focused on delivering actual value. I think that would be much better.
This is important. Again, and it's good that we can have a different perspective to some point around this, because I'm okay with brands doing that. And I would certainly do it. I'll give you a real example from my world, I guess, is in Australia, when we had the vote, I forget how many years it is now, there was the vote about are we going to vote for gay marriage, for example?
Yeah.
Now, that was a hot topic at the time, and to me, and I often, I'm with you, I often don't get vocal around everything. I stay away from themes that but there's times where I feel it's okay and it's important to some degree too, and I made it clear. I said, look, I didn't make a song and dance about it, but it's like, well, yeah, I will vote for this because I know there's many people in my world that this is important to them for. and I want them to have a life that they want. And so it was now I did that knowingly, and I suspect I probably had some business contacts that fell off my radar because they were in the opposite camp. So when I made that choice, I did so because I was okay with the choice I was making. Now, I've had a more recent example that I won't go into in too great detail, but it's a personal example, recent one, to do with the whole transgender issue as well, where literally that is now right in my world, right in my face. And it's not one that I can ignore. It's not one I can ignore. It's one of those topics and themes because somebody who is absolutely in my inner circle is experiencing that firsthand. And so I have to make a voice. I have to be a voice in support of that for that reason. It's like weighing that up and going, okay, I will be that voice and I will support and encourage. And if I've got people in my world that don't like that, because that's our topic, I'm okay with that. So I'm kind of sharing back to you, I guess, about what's political, what's not. I think we can't take the business side out of it. At the end of the day, Martin, I'm a human being. I've got opinions around lots of things. I live my day in life. And to keep all of those separate from bringing them into work is probably not going to happen. So it's being more mindful that I'm voicing and supporting the things that I do believe firmly in, that, I think is the right thing. I think it's okay. And if we don't do it, if you say brands maybe don't do it, look at a brand or a business is lots of people making it. But at the end of the day, brands have personalities. Brands have identities. And brands, to some degree, and I'm sure you would see this, if they don't make a stand, they get lashback. If they aren't seen to be taking action, they get pushed back as well. So it's a bit of a rock and a hard place in some degrees. So what you're saying, risky, stay away from it. I go, sometimes it's important they do because they might be punished if they don't speak out, you know what I mean? Or make their position clear. Sometimes they're punished as well.
Yeah. I mean, I've spoken to people on as part of this who have what is considered quite an alternative view in 2022. They have, let's just call it that, an alternative view, and they are out in the world expressing their alternative view, and they are benefiting from that. They are attracting more. So I think there is value, I'm afraid, to standing up and saying, okay, these are my convictions. I think it's different if you are a small business, because you're right, you are a person, you are experiencing these things. And I think it's different than if you're a brand. I think where I'd prefer to be is where everything weren't so politicized, where I don't need the people who make me fat off of eating chocolate virtue signaling to me about the type of shoes that their characters in their marketing wear. I don't need that. There's an emotional thing there, which is I feel better when I eat chocolate. And when I stop eating chocolate, I feel like shit again and I want to eat chocolate some more. That's like the way the emotion works. But I think, that's where I think. Okay, cool.
I'll just throughout this, we'll move on. But the stats also back up. I mean, when I write a lot for media, I'm pulling on sources and the facts are there to back it up. We've got generations now where like over 70% of a young generation use the purpose and social causes that a business are supporting as part of their decision of who they're going to work for, as much, if not more, than the pay packet they get. Yeah. We've got buyers doing the same thing, that they will look at what you're doing socially, they'll look at what you're not doing socially, and they will buy or not buy from you. And so we're actually moving into this world, and the studies are coming out where to actually remain a neutral voice is no longer necessarily an option. That's the position. That's why I come from it. But I agree with you. It comes with some risk. That's why you got to be comfortable that what you're putting out, you genuinely feel we walk, we talk, we believe in, knowing that, you know what, some people are not going to like us, and be okay with that. It's sort of like as a leader, when you become a leader, the higher up you go in leadership, you're not going to please everybody. Stop trying. You can't please everybody. Do the right thing, morally sound as best you can. I think that's what it comes down to.
Thank you for taking the time to check out this effective marketing clip. If you found this interesting and useful, YouTube thinks you're going to enjoy this one, and this is the latest thing that we've put together. If you haven't yet, and you could take a second to like, share, subscribe, and comment, that will give us the motivation to continue on this epic journey.